The three suns of the Ardelian cluster painted the council chamber in soft golden light. Around the curved table sat 12 beings from different worlds. Their forms varied, but all sharing the same look of dread. Commander Trell, head of the Ardelian Defense Council, stood before the large view screen. His tall, slender frame cast a long shadow across the polished floor. The blue skin on his face had paled to an ashen gray. He had not slept in 3 days. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The screen flickered to life. Static filled the room, broken by bursts of panicked words. "They're breaking through the outer shields. Massive ships. Weapons we've never... Please. Send help, they're harvesting, they take everything." The voice dissolved into screams before cutting to silence. "That is the final transmission from Nebulan 7, Trell said. Our outermost colony, population of 3 million. Now silent." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Their species had known peace for so long that the concept of violence on this scale seemed impossible. "What of our defense fleet?" asked Council Member Lori, her forearms wrapped tightly around herself. Trell touched a control panel. The screen changed to show a collection of sleek ships. "Our entire fleet consists of 50 patrol vessels and 12 larger carriers," he said. "All designed for scientific exploration and occasional peacekeeping. None built for war." "And the enemy?" asked another counselor. Trell's hand trembled as he changed the display again. Grainy images appeared, captured from long-range scans. Dark, angular ships moved in perfect formation. They dwarfed the Ardelian vessels that lay broken around them. We count at least 200 ships. Heavily armed. Highly organized. Based on their speed, they will reach our next colony world in 5 days. The central planets in 3 weeks. The room fell silent. The Ardelian cluster contained 52 inhabited worlds home to dozens of peaceful species. None had faced real danger in centuries. "We must evacuate the border worlds immediately," said Council Member Venn, his voice shaking. "To where?" asked Trell. "If these invaders cannot be stopped, nowhere in the cluster will be safe." Senior diplomat. Mira rose from her seat. Her white robes shimmered in the sunlight. "We have allies," she said. "The Floraxians. The Mindari Collective. We should call upon them." Trell shook his head. "I already have. The Floraxians have even less military capability than we do. The Mindari have promised to send ships, but they are 3 months away at top speed." "Then we are doomed," whispered Lori. Trell took a deep breath. The next words he would speak might change the fate of their civilization forever. "There is one other option." He pressed another button. The screen changed to show a blue-green planet wrapped in swirling white clouds. "Earth," he said simply. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. "The Deathworlders?" gasped Mara. "You cannot be serious." "The Terrans are quarantined for good reason," said Council Member Fenn, his eye stalks wavering in agitation. "They evolved on a radiation-blasted world with crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere. They are designed for constant violence." "They are monsters," added another voice. Trell held up his hand for silence. "The Terrans are dangerous, yes. Their bodies are reinforced with redundant systems, their minds shaped by constant struggle for survival. But our long-range scans have confirmed they have developed their own space travel, despite our quarantine." "All the more reason to keep them away," said Mira. "If we invite such creatures here, who's to say they won't be worse than whatever comes from the void?" Trell moved closer to the table, looking each council member in the eyes. "I have studied Earth's transmissions for years. Yes, they have a history of warfare that would make any of us sick with horror, but they also have something we lack, the ability to fight and win against impossible odds." He turned back to the screen, enlarging the image of Earth. "When we first discovered them 300 years ago, they were primitive, just beginning to explore their own world. We chose to quarantine rather than invite them into our community. We feared their potential for violence." "And rightfully so," interrupted Mara. Trell continued. But in doing so, we may have lost potential protectors. Everything I have seen suggests that humans have a strong drive to defend others. They call it their protective instinct. They have stories, myths, art, all centered around the strong defending the weak. Pretty ideas to cover their savage nature, scoffed Fenn. Perhaps, admitted Trell. But right now we need savages. We need creatures evolved to fight and survive. We need Deathworlders. The council fell into uncomfortable silence. How would we even contact them? Asked Lori finally. The quarantine protocols. There is an emergency frequency, said Trell. Established during first contact but never used. If they still monitor it. This is madness, said Mira, rising to her full height. These humans, they are not like us. Their bodies are dense with muscle. Their reactions unnaturally fast. Their tolerance for pain is horrifying. The gravity of their world is nearly twice ours. The atmosphere thick with oxygen that would make our minds race with panic. They evolved as prey, then became predators. Violence is written into their very cells. And that, said Trell firmly, is exactly why we need them. He pressed a final button. A simple communication interface appeared on screen. I call for a vote, he said. Do we activate the emergency beacon and request aid from Earth, or do we face extinction alone? The vote was close. 7-4. 5 against. As the signal was prepared, Diplomat Mara approached Trell privately. Do you understand what you've done? She asked, her voice low. If the humans come, and if they help us defeat this enemy, they will want something in return. A place in our cluster. Access to our worlds. Trell nodded slowly. Yes. After centuries of isolation, we will have to accept them as neighbors. And if they turn on us afterward, when there is no common enemy. Trell looked back at the screen, where the message was being encoded for transmission. Then we traded certain destruction for possible destruction, he said. That is the best choice we have. The emergency beacon activated with a soft ping. The ancient frequency, untouched for centuries, carried their desperate plea across the stars. 2. Earth Central Command, from Ardelian Cluster Council, Emergency Protocol. Alpha. We face extinction from unknown invaders, requesting immediate military assistance. We have no other hope. The message shot outward at faster-than-light speed toward the quarantined blue world, the world of Deathworlders, the world of humans. No one knew if they still listened to the old frequency. No one knew if they would respond after centuries of being shunned. No one knew if they would come as saviors or conquerors. But they had to try. The alternative was too terrible to consider. Trell looked out the wide window at the 3 suns setting on the horizon. Now we wait, he said softly, and hope the monsters we know will save us from the monsters we don't. The waves crashed against the small fishing boat as Admiral Jack Norton cast his line into the deep blue waters. His weathered face, lined with the marks of a lifetime of service, turned toward the morning sun. He breathed in the salty air and smiled. After 40 years in the United Earth Defense Force, retirement felt both strange and wonderful. The peaceful moment was shattered by the urgent beeping of his emergency communicator. Norton frowned. That particular tone hadn't sounded in over a decade. He pulled the device from his pocket and read the flashing message. His eyes widened. Well, I'll be damned, he muttered to himself, already packing up his fishing gear. They finally called. 24 hours later, Norton stood on the bridge of the UEFS Thunderchild, the massive flagship of humanity's deep space fleet. At 1,700 meters long, it was the largest warship ever built by human hands. Through the massive viewports, he could see dozens of other ships gathering, cruisers, destroyers, troop carriers, and support vessels. Admiral on deck, called out the watch officer. The bridge crew snapped to attention. At ease, Norton said, moving to the Central Command Station. Status report. Communications Officer Petra, a tall woman with short black hair, approached with a data pad. The signal's authentic, sir, she confirmed. It's using protocols established during the Ardelian first contact before they ghosted us. Norton frowned at the star chart displayed on the main screen. The Ardelian cluster glowed as a bright point of light. Currently 4 days travel at maximum faster than light speed. They quarantined Earth, declared us too dangerous to join their precious community, and now they're calling for help? He shook his head in disbelief. Intelligence Officer Tom stepped forward, his uniform crisp despite the short notice of their deployment. "We've compiled what we know about the Ardelians, sir," he said. "The Ardelian cluster contains 52 habitable worlds with a variety of peaceful species, all evolved on what we would classify as garden worlds. Low gravity, mild climate, limited predators, abundant resources." Tom brought up images of the Ardelians and their worlds, beautiful, lush planets orbiting gentle stars. The Ardelians themselves appeared delicate with slender bodies and fine features. Their technology is highly advanced in some areas, medicine, environmental science, communication, but they possess minimal weapons technology. Their entire defense fleet is essentially a glorified Coast Guard. "They never needed to fight," Norton mused. "No evolutionary pressure to develop those instincts." "Exactly, sir. They're basically sheep calling wolves for protection." Security Chief Rivera, a stocky woman with a perpetual scowl, snorted from her station. "What's in it for us? They locked us out of galactic society for 300 years because our world was too harsh, and we were too potentially violent. Now they want our help." Norton's expression hardened. He turned to face his senior staff. "We're not wolves," he said firmly. "We're shepherds, and humanity has spent too long in isolation." He brought up a new display, the message from the Ardelian Council, along with the grainy images they had included of the attacking force. "President Calloway has authorized a full response fleet, all 7 battle groups, support ships, and colony vessels. Everything." Science Officer Reed looked shocked, adjusting his glasses nervously. "Sir, that's nearly 30% of our total forces." "Sometimes you go all in," Norton replied, remembering Earth's own brutal history of warfare and how it shaped human resolve, especially when the stakes are this high. He studied the images of the enemy ships. Their design was like nothing he had seen before, angular, efficient, without any apparent concern for aesthetics. Pure function. "Whatever these invaders are, they're methodical," he observed. "Look at the attack pattern on Nebulon 7, systematic, thorough. No survivors left behind." "Reminds me of the harvester ants back on Earth," said Tom. "They strip an area clean before moving on." Norton nodded grimly. "Send the response to the Ardelians. Message received. The Deathworlders are coming. Hold the line. 4 days until arrival." As Petra transmitted the message, Norton turned to address the entire bridge crew. "I know what many of you are thinking. Why should we help those who rejected us? Who feared us? Who called us monsters?" He paused, looking at each face in turn. "Because that is what makes us human. We protect. We defend. We stand against the darkness, not because it's easy or because there's something in it for us, but because it's right." He walked to the viewport, gazing out at the growing fleet. "Humanity spent thousands of years fighting itself. We nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. But we learned. We grew. We united. And now we have a chance to show the galaxy that the very traits they feared in us, our strength, our tenacity, our willingness to fight, are exactly what make us valuable allies." "And if these Ardelians still fear us after we save them?" asked Rivera, voicing the question many were thinking. Norton smiled slightly. "Then we'll have proven them right about our capacity for violence and wrong about how we choose to use it." He returned to the command chair. "Set course for the Ardelian cluster. Maximum speed, all ships to battle readiness. Let's show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do when they're defending life instead of taking it." As the massive human fleet prepared for faster-than-light travel, activity bustled throughout the ships. In the armories, troops checked weapons and battlesuits. In medical bays, doctors prepared for casualties. In engineering sections, technicians fine-tuned engines and weapons systems. On the Thunderchild's observation deck, Norton stood alone, watching Earth grow smaller as they moved toward the jump point. Captain Lee, his second in command, joined him silently. Having second thoughts, sir? She asked after a moment. Norton shook his head. Just thinking about history. For centuries we wondered if we were alone in the universe. Then we discovered we weren't. Only to be told we weren't welcome. Too dangerous. Too unpredictable. And now? Lee prompted. Now we get to show them why Deathworlders make the best friends and the worst enemies. He turned to her with determination in his eyes. Order the fleet to jump. Let's go make some new friends. The massive engines of the human ships glowed bright blue as they prepared to tear a hole in space-time. One by one they vanished into the fabric of space, leaving Earth behind. Their destination, a cluster of peaceful worlds facing extinction. Their purpose, to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their capacity for violence, but their willingness to use that capacity to protect others. The Deathworlders were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Ardelian orbital station hung in space like a gleaming jewel. Its elegant curves and transparent sections reflected the light of 3 suns. Commander Trell stood at the large observation window, his 3 hearts beating rapidly. 4 days had passed since they sent their desperate message to Earth. 4 days of waiting, of fear, of wondering if help would come. Any sign of them? Asked diplomat Mira, joining him at the window. Her usually perfect appearance was marred by dark circles under her eyes. Nothing yet, Trell replied. But they said 4 days. It's only been... A sudden alarm interrupted him. A junior officer rushed to the sensor station. Multiple space-time ruptures detected. The officer called out, voice shaking. Massive energy signatures. Trell and Mira watched in stunned silence as the fabric of space tore open before their station. First one ship emerged, then another, then dozens more. The sight made Trell's breath catch in his throat. The human vessels were nothing like the elegant Ardelian ships. These were angular, powerful machines built for war. Their hulls were marked with symbols and numbers, bristling with weapon systems, unlike anything in the Ardelian design philosophy. The flagship at the center dwarfed their entire defense fleet. By the 3 suns, whispered Mara. What have we invited here? The communications console chimed. Incoming transmission from the human flagship, announced the communications officer. Put it through, ordered Trell, straightening his posture. The screen lit up to show a human male with gray hair and a weathered face. He wore a dark uniform decorated with symbols of rank. This is Admiral Jack Norton of the United Earth Defense Force, the human said. We received your distress call. The Thunderchild and her battle groups are at your service. Trell stepped forward. Admiral Norton, I am Commander Trell of the Ardelian Defense Council. On behalf of the 52 worlds of our cluster, I thank you for answering our call. Norton nodded. We've brought a full response fleet. Our flagship will dock. With your station for strategic planning, we request a meeting with your leadership immediately. Of course, Trell agreed. We will prepare for your arrival. As the transmission ended, Mara grabbed Trell's arm. Did you see the size of that fleet? She hissed. They must have sent a significant portion of their military forces, which means they take the threat seriously, Trell replied. That's good news. Or they're using this opportunity to position themselves for something else, Mara warned. Trell had no answer to that. 2 hours later, Admiral Norton and his command staff entered the Ardelian Council chamber. The difference between the species was immediately apparent. The humans moved with efficient precision, their bodies dense with muscle, their eyes constantly scanning the room. Even in the station's lighter gravity, they seemed solid, substantial. The Ardelians, with their tall, slender frames and graceful movements, looked fragile by comparison. Norton approached Trell and extended his hand. Commander Trell, I presume. Trell hesitated before carefully taking the human's hand, copying the greeting gesture he had seen in Earth transmissions. The human's grip was firm but controlled, as if Norton was carefully holding back his strength. Welcome to the Ardelian cluster, Admiral, Trell said, trying to hide his nervousness. May I introduce Senior Diplomat Mara and the members of our Defense Council? Norton nodded to each in turn, then introduced his own staff. Communications Officer Petra, Intelligence Officer Tom, Security Chief Rivera, and Science Officer Reed. The formal greetings completed, they moved to the large meeting table at the center of the chamber. Norton studied the delicate, willowy Ardelians with interest. Now that he was seeing them in person, he understood why they had been so afraid of humans. To them, humans must seem like creatures made of stone, heavy, dense, and built for violence. Your message indicated an invasion force attacking your outer colonies, Norton said, getting straight to business. We've deployed scout ships to assess the threat while our main fleet stands ready. Trell gestured to a holographic display showing the Ardelian cluster and the path of destruction left by the invaders. They have already destroyed one colony world. 3 million lives lost. Their fleet is moving toward our next settlement. At their current speed, they will reach it tomorrow. Diplomat Mara studied the humans across the table. After centuries of quarantine, why would you help us? She asked directly. We did not treat your species kindly. Norton's smile didn't reach his eyes. Because that's what humans do. We protect those who can't protect themselves. The awkward reunion was interrupted when Officer Tom received a message on his device. Admiral, the scout ships have reported back, he said urgently. Put it on the main display, Norton ordered. The holographic display changed to show footage captured by the scout ships. The images were clear and horrifying. Strange ships of black metal moved with perfect coordination, surrounding an Ardelian colony. Beams of energy cut through defenses like they were made of paper. Smaller craft descended to the surface, gathering resources and, most disturbing of all, collecting living beings. They're systematic, observed Tom. No emotion, no hesitation, just cold calculation. What are they? Asked one of the Ardelian counselors, voice shaking. Science Officer Reed adjusted his glasses as he studied the data. Based on our analysis, they appear to be a machine-organic hybrid species. We're designating them the Vex. Their ships show evidence of both technological and biological components working as a single system. Like a hive, suggested Tom. Or a collective intelligence. Norton turned to the Ardelian Council. We'll need to coordinate. Your knowledge of the local space, combined with our combat capabilities, gives us the best chance of stopping them. Trell hesitated. Our people have no experience with warfare. We evolved without major predators. Our species never developed the instincts or technologies for large-scale combat. Then learn, Norton replied firmly. Or prepare for extinction. The Vex won't care about your peaceful intentions. Mara looked offended, but Trell nodded slowly. What do you need from us? He asked. Norton's expression softened slightly. First, complete access to your star charts and sensor networks. Second, a staging area for our troops and ships. Third, volunteers from your people to act as guides and advisors. And after? Mara asked. If we defeat these Vex, what then? Then we talk about the future, Norton said. About a new relationship between Earth and the Ardelian cluster. But first, we fight. As the human officers began laying out battle plans, the Ardelians witnessed the full extent of humanity's capacity for strategic violence. The humans discussed attack formations, weapon yields, and acceptable casualties with a calm efficiency that was both impressive and terrifying. Trell watched as Norton directed his staff, pointing out weaknesses in the enemy formation, suggesting countermeasures, calculating risks. In that moment, he understood why his ancestors had feared these Deathworlders, but he also understood something else. These humans had come not to conquer, but to protect. The very instincts that made them dangerous, their aggression, their territorial nature, their pack mentality, were now turned outward, against a common enemy. We'll deploy the main fleet here, Norton was saying, pointing to a position near the next colony in the Vex path. The Ardelian ships will serve as early warning and evacuation support. You want us to run while you fight? Asked an Ardelian. Counselor, I want you to do what you're good at. Norton replied. Save lives. Leave the killing to us. Trell met Norton's gaze across the table. Human and Ardelian, Deathworlder and Garden Worlder, predator and prey, united by a common threat. We will do our part, Trell promised, and perhaps learn from you in the process. Norton nodded once. The battle begins tomorrow. The Deathworlders will stand between your people and extinction. Let's make sure we all live to tell about it. The combined human-Ardelian fleet formed a protective line before the colony world of Nebulan 6. The sleek, elegant Ardelian vessels looked like toys next to the massive human warships. Admiral Norton stood on the bridge of the Thunderchild, studying the tactical display with intense focus. Vex fleet approaching, announced Communications Officer Petra. Estimated arrival in 30 minutes. Norton nodded, his face calm despite the tension filling the bridge. Several Ardelian observers stood at the back of the command center, their eyes wide as they watched the controlled chaos of human battle. Preparations. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Captain Lee from her station. Good, Norton replied. Remind all captains, hold formation and wait for my command. No heroics. The minutes ticked by slowly. On the main view screen, the stars shone bright and peaceful against the black of space. It was hard to believe that death approached. Vex fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel, reported the sensor officer suddenly. Multiple signatures. Count is 217 vessels. The view screen shifted to show the enemy fleet. Black ships moved in perfect formation like a swarm of insects. They flew with mechanical precision, no ship out of place by even a meter. They're scanning us, said Science Officer Reed, watching. His instruments. They've already adapted to our scanning frequencies. They're learning our patterns. Norton nodded grimly. That's what they do. But adaptation goes both ways. He turned to address the bridge crew. This is what we trained for. The Vex rely on patterns and calculations. We rely on courage and determination. Remember your training, but trust your instincts. Norton pressed a button on his command chair. All ships, this is Admiral Norton. Engage as planned. Group 1, forward. Groups 2 and 3, hold position. Godspeed. The first wave of human ships moved toward the Vex fleet. Heavy cruisers and destroyers fired their main weapons in a coordinated barrage. Brilliant energy beams cut across space, striking the front line of Vex vessels. For a moment, it seemed the attack had worked. Several Vex ships exploded in silent bursts of light. But then the remaining enemy vessels adjusted their shields and the next volley of human weapons did far less damage. They're adapting to our weapon frequencies, reported Reed with alarm. As expected, Norton said calmly. Signal, Group 2, begin attack pattern Beta. The second wave of human ships moved forward, launching swarms of smaller fighter craft. The tiny ships darted between the larger Vex vessels, targeting weak points with precise strikes. The Vex responded with devastating efficiency. Energy beams lashed out, catching several human destroyers. One exploded in a ball of fire, another drifted, crippled. Commander Trell watched from his position near the back of the bridge, his face pale. Your people are dying for our worlds, he said to Security Chief Rivera, who stood beside him. That's what soldiers do, Rivera responded without looking away from the tactical displays. We understood the cost when we volunteered. The battle continued to unfold. The Vex adapted quickly to each human tactic, adjusting their shields and weapons. Several more human ships were hit. Damage reports filled the communications channels. This isn't working, Norton muttered, watching the tactical display as the Vex continued their methodical advance. They're calculating every move, countering, with perfect efficiency. He stood suddenly, a new determination in his eyes. Implement Chaos Protocol, he ordered. Captain Lee looked surprised. Sir? That's untested in actual combat. Now's the time to test it, Norton replied firmly. Lee nodded and transmitted the orders. Across the human fleet, captains received the unexpected command. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The human ships broke formation, each vessel suddenly executing seemingly random maneuvers. Some charged forward, others pulled back. Some cut power to weapons and diverted energy to engines, while others did the opposite. The Ardelian observers watched in confusion. "What are they doing?" Trell asked. "They're breaking formation, losing coordination." "No," Rivera replied with a tight smile. "They're being human." On the tactical display, the perfect Vex formation faltered for the first time. Their ships, programmed to counter logical attack patterns, struggled to adapt to the unpredictable human movements. "They're machines that think linearly," Norton explained to the bewildered Ardelians. "Humans evolved to hunt creatures that ran in zigzags. Sometimes the optimal solution isn't the right one." The tide of battle began to shift. Human ships darted in and out of range, striking where least expected, retreating when the Vex adjusted. The mechanical precision of the enemy fleet became a weakness as they struggled to predict the seemingly random human attacks. But the Vex were learning. Within an hour, they began to adapt once more, developing new patterns to counter the human chaos. "They're adjusting again," Reed warned. "Our advantage is slipping." Norton's face showed no concern. Instead, he smiled slightly. "Time for the real surprise," he said quietly. He turned to Communications Officer Petra. "Signal the boarding teams. Execute Operation Trojan." Across the rear of the human fleet, bay doors opened on specialized boarding vessels. The small, heavily armored ships rocketed toward the Vex fleet, weaving through the battle with incredible speed. The Vex, focused on calculating weapon trajectories and fleet movements, failed to register the tiny craft as significant threats. This was their critical mistake. "What are those?" asked Trell, pointing to the small ships on the display. "Those," said Rivera with pride, "are our Marines, the best fighters humanity has ever produced." The boarding craft slammed into the hulls of the largest Vex vessels. Cutting tools and explosives created entry points. From each craft emerged squads of armored human soldiers, carrying weapons and determination into the heart of the enemy. "You're sending your people inside the enemy ships?" gasped an Ardelian observer. "That's suicide." "That's humanity," corrected Norton. "We don't accept no-win scenarios." On the main screen, helmet camera feeds from the boarding team showed the interior of the Vex vessels. The human soldiers moved through narrow corridors, facing mechanical defenders and strange biological components that seemed to be part of the ships themselves. The Ardelians watched in awe as the humans fought their way deeper into the Vex command ships. Where Ardelians would have retreated, humans advanced. Where logic said to surrender, humans found another way. "Look at them," whispered Trell. "They're not just strong. They're relentless." The battle outside continued, but now the Vex ships fought with decreasing coordination. As human teams reached their central control systems and planted explosive devices, the once perfect enemy formation began to fall apart. "It's working," announced Reed excitedly. "The Vex fleet is losing cohesion." Norton allowed himself a small smile. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Full attack. Hit them while they're confused." The human fleet surged forward, weapons blazing. The Vex, with their central command structure compromised by the boarding teams, could no longer coordinate their defenses effectively. One by one, the massive Vex ships began to explode or drift powerless. The smaller vessels, apparently dependent on directions from the larger ones, became erratic in their movements. After 6 hours of intense fighting, the remaining Vex ships suddenly turned and accelerated away from the battle, jumping to faster-than-light speed and disappearing into the void. "They're retreating," confirmed Captain Lee, her voice reflecting the disbelief of everyone on the bridge. A cheer erupted from the human crew. Norton allowed it for a moment before raising his hand for silence. "Damage. Report," he ordered. 17 ships lost, 32 damaged, replied Lee soberly. Casualty numbers still coming in. The celebration faded as the cost of victory became clear. Norton turned to face the Ardelian observers. "Your colony is safe," he said simply. "For now." Trell stepped forward, his eyes filled with a new emotion. Respect. "How did you know the boarding strategy would work?" he asked. Norton looked back at the tactical display where rescue ships were already moving to retrieve survivors. "We didn't," he admitted. "But humans have always understood something that machines never will. Sometimes you have to do the unexpected, the irrational, the seemingly impossible. That's how we survived on Earth. That's how we'll survive out here." The Ardelians looked at the Deathworlders with new understanding. The very unpredictability they had feared was what had saved them.
All.
3 months had passed since the Battle of Nebulon 6. The Ardelian capital world shone like a jewel beneath the light of 3 suns. In the grand meeting hall of the High Council, representatives from all 52 worlds gathered for a historic occasion. The room was decorated with both Ardelian and human symbols. Delicate crystal sculptures stood alongside sturdy earth plants. The two cultures, so different in form and philosophy, had begun to find common ground. Admiral Norton entered the hall, wearing his formal uniform. Though the fabric was freshly pressed, careful eyes could spot hastily repaired damage, a reminder of his close call during the final confrontation with the Vex mothership. Behind him walked his senior staff and a selection of ship captains who had distinguished themselves in battle. The Ardelians rose as the humans entered. No longer did they shrink back in fear at the sight of the Deathworlders. Now there was respect in their eyes, and something more: gratitude. High Counselor Mara, who had once been the strongest voice against contacting Earth, stood at the center of the raised platform. Her white robes were more elaborate than usual, marking the importance of the day. "Admiral Norton," she said, her voice carrying through the quiet hall, "please step forward." Norton approached the platform, his stride confident but not aggressive. He had learned to move carefully in the presence of the more delicate Ardelians. "The remaining Vex forces have been driven from our cluster," Mara announced. "Thanks to the brave actions of the human fleet and the coordination of our combined forces." Norton nodded in acknowledgement. "The threat is contained but not eliminated," he replied. "The Vex will analyze their defeat and return, stronger. Next time, you need to be ready." There was murmuring among the Ardelian representatives. The idea of preparing for war was still foreign to many of them. Mara raised her hand for silence. "We have taken your words to heart, Admiral. Already, volunteers from our worlds have begun training with human instructors. We are learning difficult lessons. Necessary ones," Norton corrected gently. "Yes," Mara agreed. "Necessary." She straightened her shoulders. "I have an announcement to make. The High Council has voted unanimously to request a permanent human presence in our sector, a defense pact, cultural exchange, and open borders for trade and migration." A ripple of surprise passed through the human delegation. Norton raised an eyebrow. "After centuries of quarantine, you're inviting the dangerous Deathworlders into your homes?" he asked with the hint of a smile. "We were wrong," said a familiar voice. Commander Trell stepped forward to stand beside Mara. "We feared your strength, your evolutionary adaptations, your capacity for violence. We didn't understand that the same forces that made you dangerous also instilled in you a profound drive to protect." Norton looked around the hall, seeing nods of agreement from the Ardelian representatives. "That's a significant change of heart," he observed. "When faced with extinction," Trell replied, "one's perspective tends to shift." Mara presented Norton with a crystal tablet. On it was inscribed the proposed treaty between Earth and the Ardelian cluster, an alliance that would forever change the future of both civilizations. "President Calloway has reviewed the terms," Norton said, accepting the tablet. "Earth is prepared to sign." The treaty signing ceremony was broadcast across both human and Ardelian space. On 52 worlds and on distant Earth, billions watched as two species, once separated by fear, joined their futures together. The terms were simple but powerful. Humans would establish defense outposts throughout the cluster, training Ardelian forces and providing protection. In return, the Ardelians would share their advanced medical and environmental technologies with Earth, technologies that could help heal the scars left by centuries of human warfare and industrial development. 1 week later, Norton stood on the observation deck of the Thunderchild, watching as the first human colony ships entered Ardelian space. They carried families and civilians who would establish permanent settlements in the cluster. At the same time, Ardelian scientists had begun arriving on Earth, bringing with them knowledge that promised to transform human society. Their air cleaning technology alone could reverse decades of pollution in months. Captain Lee joined Norton at the viewport. "The first defense stations are already operational," she reported. "The Ardelians learn quickly when they put their minds to it." Norton nodded. "They'll need to. The Vex will return, and they won't be alone. There are many threats in this galaxy." "At least they won't face them alone anymore," Lee said. Norton smiled slightly. "Neither will we." Commander Trell entered the observation deck, moving with growing confidence among the humans. He had volunteered to be the Ardelian liaison to the Earth Defense Fleet and had spent many hours learning human customs and military protocols. "Admiral," he greeted Norton. "May I speak with you privately?" Norton nodded, and they moved to a quiet corner of the deck. Through the viewport, they could see the stars stretching out to infinity. "I still don't fully understand why you came," Trell confessed. "After how we treated your species, quarantining Earth, denying you your place in the galactic community." Norton looked out at the stars, thinking of humanity's long, violent history, how they fought and killed one another for millennia before finally finding unity. "We came because you were afraid," he said simply. "On Earth, for most of our history, fear was a constant companion. We know what it's like to feel helpless against forces beyond your control. No sentient being should have to face that alone." Trell was silent for a moment. "The old council believed that your aggressive instincts made you too dangerous to join the wider community. They never considered that those same instincts could make you our greatest protectors." "Humans are complicated," Norton agreed. "We can be builders or destroyers. It's all in how we channel our nature." He turned to face Trell directly. "Your people evolved in peace and harmony. Mine evolved fighting for survival every day. Both paths created intelligent, sentient beings worthy of respect. But when danger comes, you need both kinds, those who know how to heal and those who know how to fight." "Balance," Trell said thoughtfully. "Exactly." Norton gestured to the stars. "There's room out there for all of us, the peaceful and the warriors. And sometimes, the warriors are the ones who ensure the peaceful can stay that way." In the months that followed, human ships traveled throughout the Ardelian cluster, establishing bases and training centers. Ardelian volunteers, once afraid of violence in any form, learned the basics of defense and strategy. Meanwhile, human children on Earth began attending schools designed with Ardelian principles, learning to value harmony alongside strength. Environmental damage that had seemed permanent began to heal under the guidance of Ardelian science. The galaxy watched this unexpected alliance with interest and some concern. Other species, who had also avoided contact with the dangerous humans, began to reconsider their positions. The message spread across the stars. The Deathworlders of Earth were not to be feared, but perhaps to be welcomed. For when darkness threatened, there was no better ally than a species that had evolved to face death and emerge stronger. And on the edge of known space, other powers took note. The Vex Collective processed the information and adjusted their plans. Various ambitious empires reconsidered their expansion strategies. For the first time in millennia, predatory civilizations paused before striking weaker neighbors, because now they knew: harm one peaceful world, and you might find yourself facing the full might of humanity. The Deathworlders, who had made it, their mission to protect those who could not protect themselves. The SOS that had sparked fear had revealed a profound truth. Sometimes, the most dangerous species in the galaxy are precisely the allies you need when facing extinction. The end. The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Commonwealth diplomatic vessel. Sam Gardner pressed his hand against the cool glass, still unable to believe he was actually in space, traveling faster than light. After years of humanity, wondering if they were alone in the universe, the answer had arrived 3 months ago in the form of an enormous ship appearing in orbit around Earth. Still can't get used to it, can you? Olivia Dixon joined him at the window, her military posture relaxed for once. Like Sam, she wore the simple gray jumpsuit provided to all human representatives. Not really, Sam admitted. He was a Navy lieutenant back on Earth, but rank seemed meaningless here among beings from 17 different planets. I keep thinking, I'll wake up, Olivia nodded. 20 of us picked from billions. Sometimes I wonder why they chose us. The ship's internal lighting dimmed slightly, signaling the transition to night cycle. Most of the Commonwealth species followed a similar circadian rhythm to humans, which scientists back home found fascinating. Lieutenant Gardner, Sergeant Dixon. The voice came from behind them, high-pitched and musical. They turned to see Zexala, the Commonwealth ambassador. She resembled a tall, slender human with pale blue skin, large eyes and delicate fingers with an extra joint. I hope you're finding your accommodation satisfactory. Yes, Ambassador, Sam replied. Everyone has been very welcoming. Zexala's mouth formed what they had learned was a smile, though it looked more like a grimace to human eyes. I'm pleased to hear it. The Council wishes to speak with all human representatives tomorrow. We have reached a decision regarding your evaluation process. After she left, Olivia leaned closer to Sam. Evaluation process? That's new. Maybe it's just a formality, Sam said. But he felt uneasy. The next morning, all 20 humans gathered in the council chamber. It was a vast circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. Representatives from each Commonwealth species sat in their designated sections. Sam noticed how the environmental conditions varied in each area. The reptilian Sorex sat under heat lamps, while the amphibious Vorlians had a constant fine mist spraying over them. In the center stood Zexala, flanked by two tall bird-like beings with iridescent feathers, the Kreltak, known for their scientific achievements. Humans of Earth, Zexala began, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. The Commonwealth has observed your species for several of your Earth years. We have studied your history, your conflicts, your triumphs. Most significantly, we have analyzed the world that shaped you. One of the Kreltak stepped forward, activating a holographic display. Earth appeared, floating in miniature before them. Your planet is classified as a Class 12 death world, the Kreltak said, his voice like clicking stones. High gravity, extreme, temperature variations, atmospheric toxins, dangerous predators, natural disasters. The conditions that shaped your evolution are remarkable. Whispers spread throughout the chamber. Sam exchanged glances with Olivia. Death world. Earth had always just been home. Few sentient species evolve in such hostile conditions, Zexala continued. Those that do develop unique traits. Before we can consider Earth's admission to the Commonwealth, we must understand these traits better. The second Kreltak spoke up. Your physical capabilities are concerning. Your endurance, strength relative to size, tolerance for toxins and radiation, these exceed Commonwealth averages significantly. Sam noticed some of the smaller species, particularly the gelatinous MXA, quivering in what might have been fear. A Vorlian representative rose from the misty section. His skin was smooth and greenish with gills fluttering at his neck. The issue is not merely physical. Your psychological profiles show alarming resilience. Where most sentient species evolved, to avoid danger, humans seem to seek it out. You voluntarily engage in activities that risk injury or death. You call this adventure or sport. Sam almost laughed but caught himself. He hadn't realized that rock climbing or surfing might seem bizarre to alien species. Therefore, Zexala announced, the Council has decided that a practical evaluation is necessary. 20 human candidates will participate in a standard survival assessment on a neutral planet. This will help us understand your capabilities and determine if humans pose any risk to the Commonwealth harmony. A murmur of surprise passed through the human group. Kevin Lee, a park ranger from Colorado, whispered, Survival test? Like camping? The assessment will last 30 planetary cycles, Zexala continued. You will be transported to Navarre 7, a moderate environment by Commonwealth standards. You will be provided with standard emergency equipment and must navigate from the drop point to the extraction point. Your progress will be monitored at all times. Images appeared in the holographic display: purple-tinged forests, rolling hills, and what looked like a savanna with red grass. "Doesn't look too bad," Olivia whispered to Sam. A tall, imposing figure stood from the upper tiers. Unlike the others, he wore what appeared to be armor, black and reflective. His skin was gray with ridges along his skull. "I am Security Director Kravzak," he announced, voice deep and rumbling. "I must emphasize the importance of this evaluation. The Commonwealth has encountered Deathworld species before. The results were unfortunate." Sam felt the mood in the room change. There was fear here, hidden beneath the diplomatic language. A smaller alien with 6 limbs approached the humans after the briefing. He introduced himself as Meptu, a Vorlian scientist. "Please understand," he said quietly, glancing around as if worried about being overheard. "This test is very important. Some council members are concerned about admitting a species with your capabilities." "We're just people," Sam said. "We're not looking for trouble." Meptu's large eyes blinked rapidly. "That is what concerns them. You don't even recognize your own dangerous potential." Later, as the humans prepared their gear, Sam pulled Olivia aside. "Did that feel strange to you? The way they kept talking about Earth like it's some hellscape?" Olivia nodded, checking the alien equipment they'd been issued. It resembled camping gear, though the materials were unfamiliar. "And did you notice how some of them seemed almost afraid of us?" she added. "I heard 2 technicians talking about betting odds on our survival rates." Sam frowned. "Betting odds? They think we might not survive? Maybe it's more serious than camping after all." The next day, the humans were loaded into transport vessels. Through the viewport, Sam watched Navarre 7 grow larger, a blue-green world with swirling white clouds, not unlike Earth from a distance. As they prepared for landing, he overheard 2 Kreltak speaking quietly. "They have no idea what they're walking into," one said. "This will determine if they're too dangerous to join us," replied the other. Sam felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. He caught Olivia's eye, and her expression told him she'd heard it too. Whatever this standard survival assessment was, it wasn't standard at all, and the Commonwealth was more afraid of humans than humans realized. The transport touched down on a grassy plain. As the doors opened, the alien sun bathed them in purple-tinted light. The test had begun. The air of Navarre 7 smelled like mint and copper. Sam took a deep breath as he stepped onto the alien soil. Around him, the other 19 humans were doing the same, some looking nervous, others excited. The purple-tinged forest lay ahead, its trees tall with spiral patterns on their trunks. "Everyone gather round," called Dr. Lisa Miller, a survival expert who had been appointed as the unofficial leader of the human group. She held up the alien device they'd been given, which displayed a 3-dimensional map. "The extraction point is approximately 50 miles northeast. We have 30 days to get there." Olivia examined the emergency pack she'd been issued. It contained what looked like water purification tablets, nutrient bars, a thin metallic blanket, and some kind of multi-tool. "Not exactly generous with the supplies, are they?" They said this is what any Commonwealth citizen would receive in an emergency situation, Sam replied, testing the weight of his own pack. "Seems pretty basic." Kevin Lee, the park ranger, was studying the map. "The terrain doesn't look too difficult. Some forests, a river crossing, and those hills near the end. I've guided tougher trails back in the Rockies." As they made final preparations, a small Commonwealth shuttle hovered nearby. A blue-skinned face peered anxiously through the viewport. Ambassador Zexala. Her voice came through their communication devices. "Please proceed with extreme caution," she said. "The wildlife can be unpredictable. The terrain may be treacherous. If you find yourselves in danger, activate your emergency beacons immediately." The humans nodded politely, but Sam noticed several of them hiding smiles. The ambassador's warning seemed excessive given the peaceful landscape around them. After the shuttle departed, Dr. Miller suggested they split into 4 groups of 5 to cover more ground and improve their chances. Sam and Olivia joined with NASA engineer Aaron Walsh, xenobiologist Dr. Alan Reeves, and meteorologist Paula Grant. "Let's establish some goals," Aaron suggested as they began walking toward the forest. 5 miles today, get the lay of the land, find water, and set up camp before dark. They reached the edge of the forest within an hour. The trees were widely spaced, with soft moss-like growth covering the ground. Sam noticed small creatures scurrying away as they approached. Nothing. Larger than a squirrel with 6 legs and furry bodies. "I wonder what they're so worried about," Olivia said after the 3rd warning call from the Commonwealth observation team. "This is practically a nature walk." "Maybe the other species aren't built for walking long distances," Dr. Reeves suggested, examining a leaf with interest. "Most of the Commonwealth representatives I've seen seem to have different physical capabilities than humans." By midday, they had covered nearly 3 miles and found a stream with clear water. After testing it with their equipment and finding it safe, they refilled their water containers. "This was classified as difficult terrain," Paula said, referring to the briefing they'd received. "I'm starting to think our definitions of difficult might be very different." As they continued, Sam noticed small drones occasionally visible through the canopy above. "We're being watched closely," he pointed out. "I'd be curious too if I thought we might not survive this," Aaron replied with a laugh. By late afternoon, they had exceeded their 5-mile goal. The forest had grown denser but remained navigable. When they set up camp in a small clearing, they were surprised by another communication from the observation team. "Human Group 3, you have traveled an unexpected distance today," said a nervous voice they didn't recognize. "Are you experiencing fatigue or distress?" "We're fine," Olivia answered, exchanging amused glances with her teammates. "Just setting up camp for the night." "You have traveled 8.3 kilometers in 1 day. This is concerning." After the communication ended, the humans burst into laughter. 8 kilometers? Paula wiped tears from her eyes. "That's nothing. I walked that much just shopping at the mall back home." Dr. Reeves looked thoughtful. "I think we need to reevaluate what this test is about. They're not seeing if we can survive. They're genuinely surprised by what humans consider normal." The night passed uneventfully. The temperature dropped slightly, but nothing compared to camping in the mountains on Earth. They took turns keeping watch, though none of them had seen anything dangerous. In the morning, they contacted the other human groups via their communication devices. All reported similar experiences: easy terrain, worried observers, and no significant challenges. Group 2 made it across the river already, Sam told his teammates after the call. They said it was only waist-deep with a gentle current. The aliens apparently thought it would take days to figure out how to cross. They broke camp efficiently and continued northeast. By midday, they encountered what the map had marked as hazardous terrain, a rocky slope with some loose stones. It took them less than 20 minutes to navigate it safely. "I'm beginning to think the Commonwealth has very different physical capabilities than we do," Olivia said as they rested at the top. In the observation station orbiting Navaris 7, the mood was tense. Security Director Kravzak paced before the wall of monitors showing all 20 humans making steady progress across the planet's surface. "This is impossible," he growled. "We're 3 days in and not a single casualty. The MXA models predicted at least 30% attrition by now." Ambassador Zexala seemed more relieved than concerned. "Perhaps we misunderstood their capabilities. They seem well adapted to this environment." "Too well adapted," Kravzak insisted. "Look at them. They're not just surviving, they're enjoying this." On one screen, Sam and Kevin were shown laughing as they helped each other over a fallen tree, an obstacle the Commonwealth scientists had calculated would require tools and significant time to overcome. On another screen, Dr. Miller's group had fashioned spears from branches and caught fish from a lake, supplementing their rations efficiently. "The problem is fundamental," said MEP2, the Vorlian scientist. "We designed this test based on what would challenge Commonwealth species. But these humans, they evolved in conditions we can barely imagine." Kravzak's eyes narrowed. Then, Perhaps we need to adjust the parameters. If this test doesn't show us their true nature, we must create conditions that will. Back on the surface, Sam's group had made excellent progress. By the evening of the third day, they had covered nearly 20 miles. They made camp on a ridge overlooking a valley where they could see the river they would reach the next day. As night fell, Olivia watched strange glowing insects float through the air. You know what's weird? I don't feel like I'm on an alien planet anymore. It's almost like home. Sam nodded. Maybe that's what scares them, what they call a survival test we call Wednesday. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the purple sky. None of them knew that above them, Kravzak was activating the planet's weather control systems. Let's see how they handle extreme conditions, he said, as the first raindrops began to fall on the unsuspecting humans below. The rain started gently but quickly became a downpour. Sam woke to water dripping on his face. Outside their shelter, lightning flashed across the purple sky, followed by thunder that shook the ground. "Everyone up," he called, grabbing his pack. "We need better cover." The 5 humans scrambled to gather their belongings as the wind tore at their makeshift camp. Dr. Reeves pointed to a rock formation nearby. "There, we might find an overhang." They ran through the mud, rain lashing at their faces. The storm had appeared from nowhere. The weather had been clear when they went to sleep. At the rocks, they found a shallow cave just deep enough for all of them to squeeze inside. "This isn't natural," Erin said, wringing water from her hair. "The atmospheric conditions we observed earlier couldn't produce a storm this severe, so..." "Quickly," Paula nodded, her eyes on the lightning striking with unnatural precision around their previous campsite. "It's targeted. Someone's controlling the weather." In the observation station, Kravzak watched with satisfaction as the humans scurried for shelter. "Now we'll see their true nature when faced with real danger," he said. But the junior analyst, Trillix, a small, green-skinned being with large eyes, looked troubled. "Director, this exceeds protocol parameters. The test was approved for natural challenges only. I merely accelerated a weather pattern that was already forming," Kravzak replied smoothly. "Observe how they react when truly tested. On the surface, the humans were not merely surviving, they were adapting." Sam's group had quickly organized their cave, creating drainage channels to keep water away from their sleeping area. Olivia had fashioned a rain collector from her metallic blanket, providing fresh water. By morning, the storm had passed. The group emerged to find the landscape altered. Trees down, new streams formed, mud everywhere. "Check in with the other groups," Sam suggested, and Olivia activated their communication device. The news was mixed. No one had been seriously hurt, but 2 groups had lost equipment. Most concerning, Group 4 reported they were cut off by a new ravine that had appeared overnight. "This is deliberate," Sam said after the calls ended. "They're making this harder, on purpose." "But why?" asked Dr. Reeves. "They invited us to join the Commonwealth. Why try to make us fail now?" Erin was examining broken branches nearby. "Look at these. The breaks are too clean. Some of these trees were weakened before the storm." They decided to continue toward the extraction point, but to be more cautious. As they traveled, they noticed other strange occurrences. Fruit that had been safe to eat was now causing mild allergic reactions. Paths that should have been clear according to their maps were blocked by fallen trees. By midday, they reached the river and found it had swollen to 3 times its normal size. Group 2 had crossed easily days before, but now it was a raging torrent. "We'll need to find another way across," Paula said, studying the rushing water. Sam noticed something glinting in the water, metal objects moving against the current. "Look there. Those aren't natural." They found a place to observe safely and saw what appeared to be mechanical fish swimming upriver. One leaped from the water, revealing sharp, metallic fins. "They've introduced artificial predators," Dr. Reeves said quietly. "This is becoming dangerous." In the observation station, debate was growing heated. Ambassador Zexala had joined the monitoring team and was clearly displeased. "This was meant to be an evaluation, not a death sentence," she told Kravzak angrily. "The Council authorized a standard planetary survival assessment, not whatever this has become." Kravzak remained unmoved. We needed to see how they respond to true challenges. So far, all 17 remaining subjects continue to survive. Their resilience is concerning. Concerning? Zexala's voice rose. It should be impressive. They're proving themselves worthy allies. Or dangerous enemies, Kravzak countered. No Commonwealth species could withstand what they're enduring. And look, they're coordinating between groups now. On the monitors, the humans had indeed begun to work together across distance. Groups 1 and 3 had established a rope system over the river, helping each other cross safely despite the mechanical predators below. They had discovered the artificial nature of their challenges and were adapting their strategy. Back on Navaris 7, Sam's group made camp on the far side of the river, joining with Group 1. The 10 humans sat around a small fire, comparing notes. It's not just survival anymore, said Ben Carter, a wilderness guide from Group 1. They're testing our limits, pushing to see how we break. But why? Asked Dr. Miller, who had a bandaged arm from an encounter with a thorny plant that hadn't been thorny the day before. Fear, Olivia suggested. They called Earth a death world. Maybe they're afraid of what that made us. Sam was drawing in the dirt with a stick, making a map of their progress and the obstacles they'd faced. If they're changing the rules, so... Can we? We're ahead of schedule despite everything they've thrown at us. I say we push harder. Like turn their test into a competition? Ben grinned. See how fast we can reach the extraction point despite their tricks? Exactly, Sam nodded. They expect us to struggle for survival. Let's show them how humans really handle challenges. The next morning, the combined group set out at a brisk pace. They no longer followed the suggested route on their devices, but created their own path, avoiding areas where they suspected traps might be set. In the observation center, alarms began to sound as the tracking system struggled to predict the humans' movements. They've gone off course, a technician reported. They're taking a route through the Western Highlands, an area we classified as too dangerous. Kravzak leaned forward, watching the screens with growing concern. What are they doing? That area has unstable terrain and predator nests. Trilix, who had been analyzing the humans' communication patterns, looked up from his station. Sir, I believe they've realized the test conditions have been altered. They're no longer treating this as a survival exercise. Then what are they treating it as? Zexala asked. The junior analyst's large eyes blinked rapidly. Based on their communication, patterns and behavior, they appear to be treating it as a recreational challenge. A game. On the surface, the humans had begun singing as they hiked, taking turns carrying each other's packs to rest tired shoulders. When they encountered a field of what appeared to be poisonous plants, they turned it into a competition to see who could devise the most efficient way to clear a path. 10 points for style, Olivia laughed, as Ben used a fallen branch as a pole vault to clear a particularly nasty patch. None of them noticed the small drone hovering nearby, transmitting their laughter back to the increasingly disturbed Commonwealth observers. They're enjoying this, Kravzak whispered, his voice a mixture of awe and horror. We've created the most challenging survival course possible, and they're treating it like entertainment. Zexala stepped back from the monitors. Perhaps we've been asking the wrong question all along. Not whether humans can survive in the Commonwealth, but whether the Commonwealth is ready for humans. Day 10 of the test arrived with a strange silence. No birds called in the trees. No small creatures scurried through the underbrush. Sam woke early, instantly alert to the change. Something's wrong, he whispered to Olivia, who was already awake and scanning the forest. Throughout the camp, the other humans were stirring, each sensing the unnatural quiet. They had traveled far the previous day, pushing through difficult terrain and making better time than anyone expected. Now they were just 15 miles from the extraction point, days ahead of schedule. Ben pointed to their water containers. An oily film floated on the surface. "Check your water," he called out. Everyone did. All the water they had collected from a stream the previous evening now showed the same contamination. Dr. Reeves carefully sniffed his container. Some kind of synthetic compound, not natural. They've poisoned the water supply, Dr. Miller concluded, her face grim. This test just became more than a game. In the observation station, tensions had reached a breaking point. Ambassador Zexala confronted Kravzak before the entire monitoring team. This is an outrage. You've introduced a biocontaminant without council approval. Kravzak stood tall, unrepentant. These humans have shown capabilities beyond our models. We must know how they handle true crisis. By poisoning them? Trillix's voice shook with emotion. The junior analyst had grown increasingly distressed by the treatment of the test subjects. This violates every principle of the Commonwealth. It's a mild toxin, Kravzak insisted. It will cause discomfort, not death. We need to see how they function when truly tested. On the surface, the humans were already working on solutions. Two groups had merged into one large camp, pooling resources and knowledge. Dr. Reeves and Aaron had collected samples of the contaminated water and were using their limited equipment to analyze it. It's targeting our nervous system, Dr. Reeves concluded. Similar to some neurotoxins on Earth, but engineered specifically for mammals. Two of the humans had already fallen ill. Jack, a mountain climber, and Diane, a botanist. They lay in the shade fighting fevers as their companions tended to them. This is beyond testing, Sam said as the group leaders gathered. They're actively trying to stop us now. But why? Paula asked. What are they so afraid of? Olivia had been quiet, watching the tree line where she had spotted a drone earlier. Because we're passing all their tests. Think about it. They called Earth a death world. They expected us to struggle with basic survival. Instead, we've treated it like a camping trip. Sam nodded slowly. And that scares them more than if we'd failed. The humans decided they needed to find clean water and a treatment for those affected. They split into small search parties seeking alternative water sources and plants that might counteract the toxin. Sam and Olivia headed deeper into the forest, away from the monitored streams. As they walked, Olivia suddenly grabbed Sam's arm, pointing to a small device nestled in the branches of a nearby tree. Another monitoring drone, she whispered. But this one's different. Sam studied it carefully without getting too close. It's not just watching us. Look at the transmitter. It's sending data. Olivia's eyes widened. Or receiving commands. They backed away quietly and continued their search. An hour later, they found what they were looking for. A small spring bubbling from between rocks, far from any mapped water sources. Testing showed it was clean, uncontaminated. As they filled their containers, Sam noticed something unusual, a small light blinking on their communication device. That's strange, he said, picking it up. There's a message, but it's not from any of our groups. The message was brief and in text only. Not all Commonwealth agree with test conditions. Biocontaminant formula attached, synthesized from local plant with purple stem, 3-lobed leaf. Someone's helping us, Olivia whispered. Meanwhile, in the observation center, alarms sounded as systems detected unauthorized communication. Someone sent data to the humans, a technician reported. Kravzak's face darkened with rage. Who? All eyes turned to Trillix's empty workstation. The junior analyst was nowhere to be seen. Back at the human camp, Dr. Reeves and Aaron were examining the message and searching the surrounding area for the plant described. Within an hour, they found it. A small shrub with purple stems and distinctive 3-lobed leaves. If this works, Dr. Reeves said as he crushed the leaves to extract their compounds, we not only solve our immediate problem, but we learn something important about our hosts. What's that? Asked Sam. That they're not united against us. Someone up there wants us to succeed. By evening, they had created a remedy from the plant. Jack and Diane were the first to receive it, and within hours their fevers broke. The other humans took smaller doses as a preventative measure. In the observation station, Kravzak watched with growing frustration as the humans recovered from what should have been a debilitating setback. How did they find the counteragent? So quickly, he demanded. Even with Trillix's betrayal, they shouldn't have been able to synthesize a cure so efficiently. Ambassador Zexala's face showed a mixture of relief and something else. Pride, perhaps. You continue to underestimate them, Director. These humans don't just survive, they innovate, they cooperate, they adapt faster than you can create. Challenges. A new alarm sounded. A perimeter alert from the extraction point. On the screens, 4 humans appeared, moving swiftly through the forest toward the designated landing zone. Impossible. Kravzak slammed his fist on the console. They split their group. While some stayed to treat the sick, others continued to the objective. A simple tactical decision, Zexala observed. One any species might make. No, Kravzak insisted. The Commonwealth protocols recommend maintaining group cohesion during a crisis. No species we've ever tested has divided their resources when facing a threat. The ambassador watched the screens thoughtfully. Perhaps that is why they evolved on a death world and we did not. Down on the planet, Sam, Olivia, Ben, and Paula pushed forward toward the extraction point. They had left their heavier gear behind, traveling light and fast. Their plan was simple: reach the objective, secure transportation, and return for the others. As night fell on the 10th day, they crested a ridge and saw it in the valley below, the extraction point marked by lights, in a wide clearing. They had covered 50 miles of challenging terrain in just over a third of the allotted time, despite all attempts to slow their progress. "We made it," Ben said, grinning. "Not yet," Sam replied, scanning the area carefully. "If they were willing to poison our water, they might have one more surprise waiting." Olivia pointed to movement at the edge of the clearing. "Look there." Large shapes prowled in the shadows, creatures not native to this part of Navaris 7. The Commonwealth had saved their most dangerous challenge for last. "Predators," Paula whispered, "placed right in our path." Instead of showing fear, Sam smiled. "They still don't understand, do they? On Earth, we weren't always the apex predator. We had to learn how to handle threats bigger and stronger than ourselves." Olivia matched his smile with her own. "And how did we do that?" "We did it together," Sam said, as they began to plan their approach. "And we did it using the one thing that made humans the dominant species on a death world." "What's that?" asked Ben. Sam tapped his temple. "We outsmarted them." The predators circling the extraction point were unlike anything the humans had seen on Navaris 7 so far. Large, 6-legged creatures with thick scales and sharp teeth paced the perimeter of the clearing. In the moonlight, their eyes glowed yellow. "I count 8 of them," Olivia whispered from their hiding spot at the forest edge. Sam nodded. "They're placed too perfectly. These aren't natural predators. They were put here to guard the extraction point." Paula had been watching their movement patterns. "They're working together, coordinating. See how they maintain spacing, never leaving gaps?" "We need a distraction," Ben said. "Something to draw some of them away while the rest of us reach the communication array." The extraction point consisted of a flat clearing with a tall metal structure in the center. According to their briefing, activating this array would signal the Commonwealth transport to retrieve them. Now it seemed the final test was to reach it past these guardians. Sam studied the terrain carefully. "I have an idea, but it's going to take all of us working together." In the observation station, all attention was focused on the 4 humans at the extraction point. Even those staff members not assigned to monitor duty had gathered to watch the screens. The humans had surpassed all expectations, and now faced what Kravzak considered the ultimate challenge. "These predators are native to the southern continent," the security director explained to the assembled observers. "They hunt in coordinated packs and have never been overcome by any single Commonwealth species without advanced weapons." Ambassador Zexala looked troubled. "Which we did not provide to the humans." "Precisely," Kravzak replied with satisfaction. "Now we will see their true limits." On one of the smaller monitors, Trilix was shown in a holding cell. The junior analyst had been detained for his unauthorized communication but showed no remorse. He watched the main screen intently, hope visible on his face. On the surface, the humans were putting their plan into action. They had split into pairs. Sam and Olivia gathered materials from the forest, branches, vines, and stones. Ben and Paula worked with their emergency kits, particularly the thin metallic blankets each had been issued. "Remember camping in the Colorado mountains?" Ben asked Paula as they worked. "That bear that kept circling our campsite?" Paula nodded, smiling at the memory. "We used sound and light to scare it off, but I don't think that will work with these things." "No, but the principle is the same," Ben replied. "Predators have instincts. We just need to find the right ones to trigger." Within an hour, they had assembled their tools. Sam and Olivia had created several simple spears, hardening the tips in the embers of a small, controlled fire. Ben and Paula had fashioned reflective devices using the metallic blankets stretched over branch frames. "Everyone clear on the plan?" Sam asked. When they all nodded, he took a deep breath. "Let's show the Commonwealth how humans handle predators." The first stage of their plan began with fire. Using the emergency fire starters from their kits, they lit several small, controlled blazes in a semicircle opposite the side of the clearing they planned to enter from. The flames reflected off the metallic sheets, creating an illusion of much larger fires. Most predatory species fear fire. It seems this was true across galaxies. 3 of the creatures moved away from their positions to investigate the disturbance. 3 down, 5 to go, Olivia whispered. Next came sound. Using their communication devices set to maximum volume and a high-pitched frequency, they created a painful noise directed at another section of the perimeter. 2 more predators moved away, visibly distressed by the sound. In the observation center, the Commonwealth watchers were stunned. "They're using multiple techniques simultaneously," a technician noted with awe. "Each targeting different sensory weaknesses." Kravzak leaned forward, his expression intense. "They shouldn't know these predators' vulnerabilities. They've had no time to study them." "They don't need to," Zexala replied quietly. "They're applying universal principles, testing responses, adapting in real time." The final phase of the humans' plan was the most daring. Ben and Paula broke cover on one side of the clearing, making themselves visible. When the remaining predators spotted them and began to move in their direction, Sam and Olivia dashed from the opposite side toward the communication array in the center. The predators, confused by multiple targets, split their attention. 2 followed Ben and Paula, who led them on a planned route past the fires they had created. The flames startled the creatures, slowing their pursuit. The remaining 3 turned toward Sam and Olivia, who were now sprinting across open ground. They wouldn't reach the array before the predators caught them. "Now!" Sam shouted. In perfect coordination, Ben and Paula used their reflective sheets to direct the firelight directly into the eyes of the pursuing predators. The sudden flash of bright light confused the creatures just long enough for Sam and Olivia to reach the array. Sam slammed his hand down on the activation panel while Olivia stood guard with her makeshift spear. The array hummed to life, sending its signal skyward. "Signal confirmed," came a voice over their communication devices. "Transport, inbound." The predators, recovering from their confusion, began to advance again, but before they could reach the humans, bright lights appeared overhead as the Commonwealth transport descended rapidly into the clearing. When the transport landed and the doors opened, the humans were surprised to see not just the expected retrieval team but Ambassador Zexala herself. "Impressive work," she said, genuine admiration in her voice. "Please board quickly." Once safely aboard and rising from the surface, the humans finally relaxed. Through the viewport, they watched Navaris 7, growing smaller beneath them. "What about the others?" Sam asked, suddenly concerned for their companions left behind at the camp. "They are already being retrieved by another transport," Zexala assured them. "All 16 surviving humans will be reunited on the station." 16? Olivia asked sharply. "We started with 20. Zexala looked uncomfortable. 4 of your number required medical evacuation for various injuries. They are recovering well." The transport docked with the observation station. When the humans disembarked, they found the entire monitoring team waiting, many with expressions of awe or confusion. Security Director Kravzak stood to one side, his face unreadable. In a formal meeting chamber later that day, all 16 humans gathered before the Commonwealth representatives. Ambassador Zexala addressed them. "Humans of Earth, You have completed the survival assessment in record time and with unprecedented success. The Commonwealth Council has reviewed the results and reached a unanimous decision. She paused, looking at each human in turn. Earth is hereby invited to join the Commonwealth as a full member, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Murmurs of approval spread through the room, though Kravzak remained silent. Furthermore, Zexala continued, we wish to create a new division within Commonwealth exploration initiatives, one led by human advisors. Your species' ability to adapt to unknown environments is unparalleled and could benefit all member worlds. After the ceremony, Sam found Trillix, the junior analyst who had helped them. He had been released from detention with a full pardon. Why did you risk helping us? Sam asked him. Trillix's large eyes blinked slowly. Because I saw what others did not. They thought you dangerous because you survived a death world. I thought you valuable for the same reason. As the humans prepared for their return journey to Earth with news of Commonwealth membership, Olivia found Sam on the observation deck looking at the stars. What do you think they'll say back home when we tell them their survival test was our idea of recreation? She asked with a smile. Sam laughed. They'll probably want to package it as an extreme vacation. Visit Navaris 7, where the locals think you might die but you'll have fun instead. As the ship pulled away from the station, beginning its journey to Earth, the Commonwealth watched with a mixture of trepidation and hope. They had invited Deathworlders into their community. Whether that decision would lead to greater security or unforeseen challenges remained to be seen. But one thing was certain, the universe had become a much more interesting place.